listeners to Cosmic Confluence Podcast, where we explore the streams of life, work, and spirit that flow together to shape our journeys. I'm your host Sana, as always, and listeners, today we are going to dive into a very beautiful idea, the idea of confluence we cross in business. Now, business is never just business. It's the merging of choices, identities, relationships, and sometimes even our wounds. It's the place where our personal histories and professional visions meet. And we are often asked to navigate those intersections with courage and clarity. And listeners, joining me is a woman who knows this intimately. She's a wife, a mama to young homeschooled daughter, and companion to a sweet pup. And her path has been far, far away from linear, spanning restaurants, psychic bookshops, floristry, consulting, construction, mortgages, mergers and acquisitions, teaching, and even nonprofit work for wounded veterans. That is amazing, listeners. For nearly a decade, she has been a coach helping others elevate and lighten their lives, drawing from her own struggles and triumphs. And her story reminds, especially me, that business is never separate from the soul. It's where resilience, creativity, and service converge. So let's step into this conference together and welcome our lovely, incredible guest, Samantha Kane. Samantha, welcome to the show.
Hi, Sana. Thanks for having me. So elated to be here.
Same here, Samantha. I'm so happy, so excited for this conversation. I mean, every time I go through the intro section, whenever we meet for a podcast, I mean, it's such an inspiration for me to know that you have performed so many roles. I mean, it's such a diverse path in there, different industries, different roles. So when you look back, Samantha, do you see those as separate streams of experience, or do you see them as one, like a river that was always guiding you toward coaching?
Ooh, I like the way you worded that. um, I do kind of see it more like a river because I see it as each one was a stepping stone to my personal growth and to my own experience, just living life. Especially as you go through the motions and the days pass and you get to know yourself a little better, each
Mhm,
job is like a mirror to yourself. And the mirror can look so many different ways, of course, depending on who you are in each role. But
mhm,
for me, it always reflected back. I loved performing for
mhm,
whatever it was that was called into action that needed to be done. The task at hand, the reason I was hired, the purpose for me being there, what people saw in me that made them believe that I was going to get things done, and I
mhm,
always did, and I loved that part of it, so that kind of was, I guess, a boost in confidence in that way, but at the
mhm,
same time, I was always motivated with something outside of myself, so it was like
mhm,
a duality within where every job I've ever had,
mhm,
like I say, I performed the tasks at hand and what was being asked of me to do. uh,
mhm,
I've always been self-driven and self-motivated, so I was always giving at least 150% to every job I've ever had, but I also had this outside calling, like a soul whisper that
mhm,
always led me into the next job. It was like, okay, when I was present with where I was, but then at the same time, it wasn't always like one foot in, one foot out. It was
mhm,
more of uh, both feet in, but neck turned in a different direction so that, it was like I had one eye towards the sky, something else, it was like something bigger than me. Okay, what's next? Because on a soul level, it was like, what can I learn from something else? You know, when you capture, some, would say, like you hit the ceiling of something, like a job or well, in reference to jobs in which we're speaking on this topic.
Mhm.
That's kinda how it felt. When I was getting close to something, I would almost feel suffocated, like, "Okay, I get this, I can do this, but what's next?" I know that I'm meant for more and meant for greater, and that was my soul speaking, not ego. It was just, like, "Yeah, we can do this, but what else you got?" And so that was why I kept moving through, and I love how you worded it with river because that really is the feeling of how I moved through from job to job, never being fired, just my interest always peaked. Something always hit me where there was always like a flutter of a spark somewhere else that it was like I need to make myself available for a variety of things. I'm not going to be this person that's in a job for 20, 30, 50 years, as some people are, which I think is very admirable and I respect. But personally, that was never me.
I mean, how you describe it, I mean, so many lessons we can learn from this. I mean, first of all, no job is small. And, um, I really, really, because I was about to ask you that what exactly was driving you to take that decision, because sometimes we call it an intuition or our inner voice or our higher self or, some kind of sign or a symbol, that's signifying that you should go with this decision or you shouldn't go with this. And I think you really, really, kind of made it very, very clear. And I believe it definitely needs a lot of mental strength as well as, physical strength also, but more about mental strength. And specifically when we talk about business, Samantha, like many of us chase it as a way to um, build success. But what I feel from what you said, it is that it is also a mirror. It reflects our patterns, our wounds, even our hidden strengths. So that's really, 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 really inspiring, Samantha.
Thank you. And it is hidden strengths. I like that you touched on that because it's there are certain jobs that we have that we're going to hit these milestones within ourselves of growth and personal development. And then there's certain points that we just, flatline and it becomes monotonous. And those are the spaces where people tend to really very much dislike their jobs, dislike their work even if it was something that they were so passionate about in the beginning, but they hit a burnout.
Mhm.
And I've experienced burnout myself, so I know what that feels like, but I always pushed past it because I didn't want to feel like I was just gonna quit something just because it was uncomfortable or I didn't like something anymore. I always pushed myself. I went beyond the bounds of where, most people would just have extreme impatience and and don't like sitting in the discomfort of things.
Mhm.
Yet, even though I was in these moments of it's almost like satire for yourself. If you're looking down at yourself and seeing it from a different perspective, it's like it's comical sometimes, what we go through or what we put ourselves through or what we make ourselves go through. Um and it's important to know yourself well enough so that when we hit these spaces of uncomfortability, we
Mhm.
know that, okay, is this a stage or a phase or maybe something I'm going through personally and it's reflective in the business at the moment? Or is it that this particular specific job is not sustainable for me at all? And this is now we've hit a point where this is just what it is. And that's why I was saying the term flatline, because there
Mhm,
are points where we've reached our capacity for growth. And this happened to me time and time again. I felt like I outgrew my positions. And sometimes I was offered a different position, and
mhm,
sometimes they were lateral moves where I felt like I was just sidestepping into something different, but it was more of the same. And so within all this, in the structure of business development, it's really you got to get to know who you're being in these positions, because it's like a fine balance between you don't want to be a people pleaser, getting the job done, but overexerting yourself in a way that is extremely unhealthy for you and creates or sustains poor habits for your
mhm,
health and well being. And at the same time, you also don't wanna just be quitting all these things all the time and going into all these different things and hitting all these new stepping stones like you're skipping along and you're going too fast, because then you're not getting the lessons because you're moving along at a speed that, you're not gonna recognize yourself in who you're being. So the balance is very important. So it's two things here. It's getting to know yourself very well so you can know is what position and what job is the best for you to
mhm.
align yourself with your higher self and your purpose and your calling, and then and to have balance with who you're being in these roles.
That is very, very rightly put, Samantha. Very rightly put. And now, uh, some people will argue that, and I don't agree with this, but let's just bring this, uh, into a bit of a nuanced perspective that business should be strictly kept professional. I mean, no soul talk, no personal vulnerability. I mean, they would say bringing spirituality or personal wounds into business, kind of waters it down. So, how do you respond to this perspective?
Oh, that's a really good question. Um, let's see. I would say that firstly, as a professional person in a business, in a job, being hired to do something that someone else is paying you for,
Mhm,
we really shouldn't bring emotion into our work.
mhm,
That being said, I will add the word and here.
mhm,
And there are also jobs that require emotion to play a part in business, depending on what the job is. I mean, for instance, right now we're on a podcast, and if we didn't have emotion and spirituality behind it, we would flatline and we'd have no listeners.
okay. Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
right. So, I mean, we are here to evoke emotion and evoke a spark inside of listeners to have these topics, see what resonates with people, and how it can enhance their lives and their path. But for in business, I think there's a bigger picture here. I mean, yes, it would be easy for us to just say, put your head down, do your work.
Uh,
Um, do what you're told. These are the confinements that you must work within. These are the walls. This is the structure. This is the plan. This is the strategy.
mhm,
Yet, the big picture is that spirit is everywhere and spirituality is everywhere. So, even if you work in a four walled office or a building, that has no trees and there's no nature in there.
Mhm.
Nature is inside of us, so you
Yes.
can't get away from it. And so I don't care what type of boss you have or philosophy that the business resides in. I
Mhm.
would say that spirituality is everywhere. You can't get away from it. It's going to find you. And it's going to be in all the things that we do, business included. That being said, there's a time and a place for it to be pronounced or announced. And it's going to unveil itself in moments where, let's say, for example, a boss and an employee aren't getting along, and there's some repetitive habits that are happening that the boss is unhappy with, the employee is not performing to the level that they should, and they have a
Mhm.
conversation. And when they sit down as two humans, it can be two things at the same time because duality. It can be boss to employee relation, professional, business. And at the same time, it can also be human. Now, how much human is going to be catered into this conversation is going to
Mhm.
be up to those two individuals. But it's not to say that that shouldn't happen or that shouldn't be happening
Mm.
for any business. We're here as human first. Part of what we do to make money to survive the bills we need to pay and put roofs over our heads, and clothes on our backs are, yes, of course, to make money and have a job so that we can make the money to get all the things and do all the stuff. But the real nitty-gritty and the thing that matters most is who we are inside. And if we're not aligned in that, we're not going to be our best selves. So it really all goes hand in hand. And I know that anybody listening could have a variance in opinion, um, but personally, I think that there's no way around it. Spirituality definitely plays some part. And if you want to argue that it should have a smaller part than a bigger part, I'm fine with that. But you can't close the door because it's here and it's ever present and it always will be from beyond what we know.
Wow. And then one point that you mentioned in the beginning, especially when we are working for someone else and the corporate setup or job setup. Um, I mean, before getting into podcasting, I have gone through phases where I almost worked for around 14 to 15 hours every day. This was, especially during the COVID, and it was like, madness. Definitely I suffered burnout, but then at the same time, Samantha, it really, I was really happy to put my energy into it because it felt very aligned with me. And I was aware that, sometimes personally you'll encounter so many difficult situations, but then this job or this work is something that really fulfills my soul. So I should have that mindfulness to approach it, from a point where um I kind of don't hamper it. I mean, I don't know, maybe if not everyone will agree with me, but this is what I feel. And secondly, after getting laid off from that job and after so many years after, this is the first time I'm actually feeling like I'm really soulfully aligned with this. I mean, I have done podcasts where my throat was completely broken, and I mean, sometimes even personally, there were some issues with my family, so I had to, my mind was kind of in both the places at the same time. But then, um, because I'm internally aligned with this, so I don't know. I don't feel the worst of navigating through those situations.
Oh, thank you for sharing. That's big time. It's it's really hard because, we want to do our best, and especially if we are strong, driven worker bees like you and I are, you want to, it's not impress, that's not the word, but you just want to do a good job. And and I think it sounds like you and I are both the same as far as we go beyond, the level of expectation. And when I was mentioning, I used to do like 150%. And there was also, as you were saying this, I was reminding myself of the time that I worked 70 plus hours a week with two
Mhm.
jobs. And this was before having a child and well before the pandemic. But um, we do have moments of burnout and pushing ourselves so much. There is a point of contention. There's a point where we reach that it can be no more. It's your when your spirit is dulled and your soul is crying. It's not even a soul whisper or a soul shouting. It's like a soul crying. And
Mhm.
a lot of people don't really tap in to that. They just go, I'm tired. And they really get used to this monotonous drone existence. And um, in fact, I wrote an email to my subscribers just yesterday how I was just saying that people think that mediocrity is okay. And, to me, that's like it's just you're hitting this point where you're pushing yourself so hard for
Mhm.
what? And especially if it's something that you're not aligned with. In my experience, I was aligned with one job and I was not aligned with the other. One job was to pay my bills and was, consistent, and I could count on them and they could count on me. The other
Mhm.
job was my passion, and that was teaching. But
Well,
the teaching at the time, I just didn't have enough hours and it just wasn't full time. So I was doing it as much as I could, but then I had to pay the bills, so I had to have the other job. So sometimes we do what we have to get through and to get the experience and to feel the feeling of what it's like to be in the thing that we love, even when it costs us part of our soul. But at what price for how long is the question, and how much damage are we doing to ourselves? How much is that going to parlay into our future and, snowball into our health and well-being? So these are all things that should be looked at by ourselves to acknowledge and press upon the point of how much is too much, and what is right for us, because at some juncture we should align ourselves with truly where we want to be in our careers, and to make it intentional and purposeful, even if we're not making the most money, even if it's an entrepreneurial adventure we embark on. And I had to go through that one. I didn't have anyone holding my hand in that at all. I still don't. It's hard to jump ship and do something different, but when your intuition says jump, then you
Mhm.
should do it.
Yep. Beautiful. Beautiful. So now, in the interest of clients, if our listeners they would like to, I'm very sure they would definitely love to connect with you further. So, what would be the easiest way?
Yes, thank you. So I have a website, rootswingswellness.com, rootswingswellness.com. I have a free guide on there for 5 powerful well-being tips. instant download. And I'm also on Instagram at Roots Wings Wellness.
Beautiful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And Samantha, this was such an inspiring, such a practical conversation because whenever we think about the idea of confluence, the way rivers merge, carrying both the calm waters, the rough currents, I think shaping the landscape as they flow forward. That's what I keep on thinking. So thank you so much for reminding us that success isn't found in separating the personal from the professional, but in embracing the whole journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Sona.
And to all the beautiful listeners out there, may you carry today's wisdom into your own crossroads with a little more courage, compassion, and clarity. Until next time, this is Sana inviting you to stay curious, stay open, and keep crossing those confluences with intention. Thank you.